Whether you're creating graphics specifically for web output or you have some photos that you want to share online, you can take advantage of the many features that are here in Photoshop. Here's an image that was going to be set up for, let's say, a web mock-up, and we can use this to create a series of images, and the key here is to do File, Save for Web. When you use File, Save for Web, you're going to get this dialog box, and here's our original, and here's optimized, and we can actually go to 2 up or 4 up, so as we're making different changes, we can compare them. Now I think for this one I'm going to use my 2 up so that I can compare them. This document has slices in it, which means that I can actually select different slices and work on each slice individually as opposed to the entire image. So as we're creating these, as we're going to create our final image, they're all going to be their own elements. I'm going to click on this top one here, and here we go. That's the original. Let me go back here to my, let's go to optimize so it's easier to see it. Click on the top one here, and I can see that there's some options. I can save it as a JPEG, a GIF, a JPEG, a PNG file, and then there's another option in there. But most of the files that you're going to save are going to be GIF, JPEG, or PNG. Now, a GIF file is going to be ideal for items that have flat colors. For example, these buttons would probably work best in a GIF format because they're pretty much all a standard color. And there is a little bit of a gradient on here, and that could be perhaps an issue, but there's not too many colors. And GIFs don't support thousands or tens of thousands of colors. They support 256 colors. They can be any that you want, but they're handy for working with flat colors. They are great for supporting transparencies and knockouts. You can use them for animation effects, as you might see down here. But in something at the top where I've got a lot more of blend and gradation, especially for something like this wheelbarrow, I definitely would want to use a JPEG. The JPEGs are great for photos, a lot of color tone, a lot of changes. And with photos, you can have, or JPEGs rather, you can have different versions. And you know, even if you do a very high, it's still going to load really quickly. This is showing you 6 seconds, but that's on a really slow modem. So if we change this to something like cable speed, we could actually see a much faster of how it's going to load. And each slice is going to load a lot faster instead of a one big giant image because they're bite-sized pieces. And so you can start deciding how you wanted to set this up. And really what optimizing is it's trying to get the best quality of image for the smallest file size so that it's going to download quickly. And you don't have to really make it print quality because your monitor doesn't show you print quality anyway. So you just experiment, and that's where the 2 up can be handy as well. And I'm going to go ahead and use my hand tool. I can use my space, and I can actually just start combining them, or let's go here to 4 up. And with 4 up, I could take one of those items on the slice tool, select that slice, and make it a JPEG low, and the other one I could click on it here, and I could make that a JPEG maximum, and I could start comparing them side by side and even seeing some things about load time. And so that becomes a really handy feature. Now once you've gone through and you've set up your slices and you've set up the right optimization, whether it's GIF, JPEG, or PNG. Incidentally, a PNG is kind of like a high quality version of JPEGs and GIFs, but they're usually just a larger file size, and sometimes we'll use them in a Photoshop because they're handy for working with both print and web. But traditionally, I'll just stick with JPEGs for my photos and GIFs for my flat objects like logos and buttons. But I've gone through and I've optimized all these items in here, and then I'm going to choose Save. There's actually a little ... down there if you can see it, and that means that when I save it, it's going to ask me for some more choices. And there's a default name in here, but you can also, let's go up here to Projects, and I'm going to create a new folder called Wheelbarrow Layout. You can also use this to decide what you want to bring in. Do you want to bring in just the images, so just those slices, or HTML and images? That's going to bring in images in a table format. The HTML will create a table so you can lay it out. And then you could use this, bring this into some product like Dreamweaver to start placing those images. You could also use something like the settings in here, how you're going to bring this in. I'm going to set this up as default settings. And then more importantly, down below, the slices. Do you want all the slices to come in, just the user slices, or just selected slices? And we can go ahead and do all slices. I'll do HTML and images so you can really see what's going on here. And we'll click on Save. And let's open that up. We go into our folders. Here's the HTML page. And then all those images. So it looks like a table in there. And you can see some of the optimizations. I didn't do all of it there, so you can see some of the artifacts. But if I open up images, these are all the different graphics that were created because of those slices that were made. Also, with the slices, you may want to come in, and let me go ahead and make sure I have the right tool. Slice select. I might want to come in here and click on the drop down and give it a name. Instead of 25 Web WB03, I could name that something like Top Nav Links. It may be better if I just do something like that. That's going to correlate. There we go. It's going to correlate with those images when they're created. You can see how they actually are pulling in the name of that particular slice. Now I'm going to open up another file in here. Here's this image. And there's that a view that's set up, but that's okay. I can actually still export this entire image, or excuse me, sorry, let's go back this. I can actually save this entire image for the web as a JPEG. This one's pretty big, but when I try to save this for the web, it's going to automatically change the resolution for me, so it'll be a 72. It may not quite save it correctly, so before I were to put this on the web, it'd be a good idea to actually explore the image size and choose the right resolution, making sure resample is set, so because most likely you're going to be resampling it down. Automatically that fixed it, and that's usually just so huge. I'd want to make sure, again, I'm working with pixels that are right dimensions. So for example, let's say 400 pixels. And I probably should have done constraint proportions there for a moment. So let's try this again, 72 and 400. And I like doing the resizing. Let's change our view to actual pixels. This is what it would look like if we're going to put this on the web. And we'll go back to Save for Web. Make sure it's a JPEG, and why not a maximum? And even though we can do some image sizing here, I think it's a better option to do most of your image resolution through the image area and then finally export it. This item doesn't have any slices, so the entire object is going to be exported as one image. I could just choose image only. I'm going to go and choose cancel here. Let's choose cancel, and I'm going to revert this so that I return back to all of that detail. It's really big. There's some other features that you can take advantage of if you want to share your graphics. For example, in your file menu, if you go to export, there's this really awesome feature called Zoomify. And what Zoomify lets you do is to take a high resolution graphic and save it in another element. And so we make sure we have the correct folder we want to put it into. We can give it a base name, and we can save it. And you can determine how many tiles you want to have and how many options you want to have. And I've already actually done this, so I'm going to show you what it looks like. It's actually pretty fast, believe it or not, when you're creating that. But I'll go in here to my web layout and up to projects. And here's this Zoomify feature. So it created this set of all these tiles in here. These are all these beautiful tiles that it created for me. Plus it created a HTML table, essentially, and some flash feedback. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. And I get a warning, so I'm just going to allow that to happen. And I have an object at the bottom. And you have to wait for it to load, but now I can scroll through. It kind of reminds me of those mapping tools that you have where you're trying to look something up and you're zooming in. It's just a beautiful way to share high definition graphics, and they're going to load very quickly as well. Close that out. So again, that's using the file export zoomify. And one other feature you can take advantage of, let's go to Bridge, is if you use the web gallery. Now with the web gallery, I'm going to select some images, and I'm just going to do 4, but imagine taking a whole roll of images that you want to showcase. The easiest way to get to the web gallery is to change the Bridge workspace to output, and then it'll start with this PDF content, but if you go to web gallery, you can choose lots of options in here. And there's these drop-down choices like film strips, slideshow, HTML gallery, and you can even, if you want to try it out before you start, you can click on Preview in Browser, and you're going to get a demo version of what it looks like of that particular style. They're mostly using Flash, but let's try here one. I'll do a preview, and you can see this style as well. And there's some pretty slick effects that are going through. Looks like I can click on it either way. Now I can also use these tools to make some changes. I'm going to collapse them so you can see. So I can make some changes to the site info, make some updates here, the color palette, so actually customize some of those colors that I want to use, the appearance, and then you have to at least set where you're going to save it. So at the very least, you have to choose a location, and you can even give it a name. This is called Lightroom here, so I'll name it Lightroom. I could actually upload it right away to the server, but usually I'll do that as a separate step. I'm going to leave that blank here, and I'll go ahead and save this information. It tells me it's created, and let's go ahead and open up that, where it is, web gallery, and this is the one called Lightroom. Open that up and check out the index. And then all those resources that you saw are going to have Flash information and some of the actual images. Incidentally, let's go to this one called HTML gallery. That was another one. You can even open up some of these codes. I'm going to go ahead and right click and open with Notepad. And if you feel comfortable with HTML coding or with CSS, you can actually come in and start making some changes right to the code. So for example, use a color background and start making those changes right to the code and adjust these even after the fact. There's also some Flash options in there, and you could even go into Flash and make some changes with it as well. So what you have are a lot of features for exporting your images into something that's going to be ready for the web, whether it's a bunch of sliced images or some really powerful graphics that you want to display online. And now it's time for a pop quiz. To which format should images for web be saved? A, JPEG, B, GIF, C, PNG, D, all of the above. The answer is D, all of the above. Many of your Photoshop files, because they're photos, will be saved as JPEG though.